Hey YouTube, it's Chuck. Good morning. I apologize, I haven't made many videos here during the dearth and the doldrums of summer, but there's just not a whole lot of beekeeping, and I have to admit, a little bit of laziness on my part of getting out here and making some content. I'm gonna look at my watch. It is the 30th of July. We are in the heat of summer here in Jacksonville, Florida, in zone 9A. And, you know, the bees are in a dearth. There is no nectar flowing right now, so you need to kind of add some supplemental feeding to your bees if you're keeping them. I still have a few 3-frame nukes that I kept alive, and you can see there's one in the back there also, and they can get overpopulated. So I've been taking brood frames out of them, and occasionally, you know, I leave for a few weeks and I come back and there's a whole lot of bees bearding on the outside. But what that can create is also a summer swarming situation. And I came out here last night and I actually saw a little ball of bees up in that tree, and it was just a little, you know, handful of bees. And I was like, oh no, we had a little bit of a casted swarm. Sorry for the train in the background. But I came out this morning to deal with it, and they were gone from the tree. And they ended up coming down and reorganizing on the base of this little Satsuma orange tree here that I've got here in the yard. So I'm gonna show you what it looks like up close, take a look and see if we can find the queen, and then talk about it a little bit more. We'll be right back. Okay, we're a little bit closer, and you know, as far as bee swarms go, it doesn't get any easier than coming and clustering on the ground. Obviously, they were up in the tree yesterday afternoon, and I didn't know what I was gonna probably get a bucket or something and try to shake them down just to see if it was one of my marked queens or who took this little cast away. But now they're down here on the ground, and you know, this is what I'm gonna call a suicide swarm. It's a suicide swarm because it's in July. You know, there's some old beekeeper saying, you know, that a swarm in July is not worth a fly. And the reason is they don't have any nectar sources to build up wax to grow before the winter. They cannot create the resources required in order to survive the winter, even in a climate like this. Now, granted, that is without supplements, right? Can you get a swarm like this to get all the way through the winter? You know, if it was your primary focus and you were a small beekeeper and you were gonna rescue this swarm, absolutely, you probably could. And it might be fun to try. But I'm not in the situation where I'm gonna spend a lot of extra resources on a tiny little swarm. But if we find the queen in here, I might recombine it, or I might make it a 5-framer and give it some resources from some of those other 3-frame nukes to get some of those nukes through the winter. So the first thing to do when you get out and recognize a swarm like this is I want you to recognize, first, I always light a smoker. I've got a smoker here just going in case they happen to be nasty. This is not a nasty swarm, as I'm here with no gear. But I just want you to see that when you have a swarm of bees, they are not defending anything. These bees are not stinging. And this is true of most swarms. So this is just another good indication. I say most because this is not a golden rule. Most bee swarms are docile. A little bit of smoke helps, but if you're gentle with them, if you don't squeeze and pinch, you will not get stung. So the first thing I need to do in just kind of combing through these bees is to try to see if there's a queen in here. And I'm sure there probably is. For a swarm to cast without a queen would be very, very odd. It can happen, but generally, if you find a swarm without a queen, what you found is a swarm with a virgin, and you're basically just not seeing the virgin. So I'm just gonna kind of go through here. I got my brush right next to me, and I'm just looking for the queen. You don't have to be as rough as this. You can kind of look for the queen to be walking on the outside, but the fact they're not going anywhere, this is easy, and the fact it's on the ground, this is easy. And I'm just poking around. And I've watched a few videos of guys do this before, and I've done this on video before, and many times the viewer will see the queen before I do, because here I am out here playing with the bees and talking at the same time. You got a 5K video that is probably going to be rendered down a little bit, and you might see her first, if she's even in here. But I bet she's in here. So we're just going to do for a little bit. If I find her, I will show you. Okay, I've spotted her, so I'm gonna try to run her out here and show you guys where, oh, she ran down there. There's a little cup down here on the base of this tree. She ran down there a little bit. Let's see if I can get her back up. So she's in here. As you can see, this is kind of a fun process this time of year, especially with this number of bees. She ran down there and I can't show her quite yet. She'll come back up. Now that I know where she is, I could probably spruce her up with a little bit. Oh my gosh, I found another queen. I think we have two. All right, I'm showing you right here. Here's a dot marked queen of mine. Look at that. Oh, she doesn't look so good. Oh, they've killed her. Look at that. That's not the queen I just saw. I've got a marked queen that is dead. Look at that. Interesting. So this gets more and more interesting. And there's the other queen. Do you see her right there? She's running around. Hopefully it's as smooth, not getting too unstabilized. But we've got a 2-queen swarm. And one of them, my marked one, is dead. So I didn't expect to see 2 queens in a swarm like this time of year. Sometimes in the early spring, you can get a multiple virgin swarm, but the queen I just saw did not look like a virgin. Her abdomen looked large enough to be a mated queen, and to kill the mated queen that we just saw would be odd if they still had a virgin. So I just lost her again. She went down here. And I hope I'm not shaking the camera too much. Oh, there she is. I see her. Do you see her there? All right, I'm gonna get the cage on her since we're fiddling around a little bit here. Yeah, I lost her again. I'm trying to get the cage on her while you guys take a look. She's pretty obvious to me because she's definitely got a large extended abdomen. All the cracks in this mulch around this tree make it easy for her to scoot down and hide from me. There she is. See her? Right here. Got her. Okay, so new queen, and amazingly, a dead dot marked queen. Now I will tell you, I'm gonna go ahead and just set the camera down for a second. That dead queen I placed over here, I will tell you, she was not a very impressive queen, which doesn't really bother me too much that they killed her, but it is an interesting thing of nature that they swarmed with a queen and then they subsequently killed her in the bivouac, inside of the swarm. So I've got the other one caged, and she, obviously I just dropped her. She's shrunken a little bit since they've killed her. She's definitely not a very, she's not even moving anymore. I'll just hold her by her legs and show you real quick. She was a little darker, but this is the queen they killed. So a July 30th swarm, 2 queens, and they killed the old one. So probably due to overpopulation and overheat, lack of resources, but this time of year, this swarm would not survive on its own. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep her in a cage and try to get these bees to walk into a box, and I'll show you how I do that. I can't tell you how excited I am to have such a great use case of showing you how to hive a small little swarm other than one on the ground. It just doesn't get any easier and more fun as a beekeeper than a small little docile swarm like this. So there's a lot of techniques. You know, the queen, having the queen in a cage is the most important part here. And honestly, having that dead queen wouldn't hurt any because she's still probably got some pheromones on her. And I could even, you know, go ahead and put that dead queen in there also in the cage. If you notice, walking on this is very difficult. Walking in grass is very difficult for bees. You know, it makes their path a lot longer. So what I like to do, and I've seen it done many, many times before, a sheet, a tarp, anything that kind of makes the walking easier, go ahead and lay it out. This is just a piece of a canvas cloth. And I'm gonna try to make the camera angle just right. So the bees don't have to walk through that mulch in order to get to you. So now I'm gonna put this queen inside of the box. That isn't always a requirement to get them to start moving, but it is a requirement to get them to stay. Now, obviously getting them to find it is an interesting part of this. So a little bit of a brush of some bees in the right direction will help. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this, and you watch. I might do a time lapse on this one so we can see it happen. I'm probably gonna put some frames in here for them to hang on while this happens. But the queen is inside the box now. I've got a tarp for them to walk on and a bee box for them to stay in. Enjoy. I do want to say this time of year, I usually do have some drawn comb. These are usually from either extracted honey, which is what these are from, or dead outs. If you had some small hive beetles take over, you know, putting some, you know, you got to keep these protected though. So as I set these in here, I'm going to be careful to not open my queen cage for my queen, but I'm just going to set them in here, and I'm going to set the queen up high. But I want you to notice, well, that won't work with this type of a cage because of the way the clip works. I'm just gonna leave her on the bottom. But what I want you to notice with this type of a setup, when they find a box, you get the march. This march is fascinating to watch. I'm probably gonna go ahead and lower the camera, bring it up closer so we get a nice 5K shot of the march. right, now to tell you a little bit what I'm doing. Hopefully you enjoyed the march. My battery stopped just as it was getting a little bit hot out here. Now it's time to build up the location where I'm gonna put that swarm. And right now I've got to decide how big am I gonna make it. I was actually going through my 3-frame nukes looking for one without a marked queen. And so far, I haven't figured out which of these boxes it swarmed from. I've only got one more nuke to go through. So I'm not sure where she came from. She might have come from the deep Langstroth hive. But the point is I'm going through these 3-frame nukes and I'm realizing these are too strong for 3 frames right now. So I need to take about a frame of brood out of each of these and put them into this nuke. So basically I'm gonna start off this swarm with capped brood already. So what I'm doing now is I'm going through these hives, I'm finding the queen, and this one I found the queen, she's already right there. And then I'm looking at the condition of the frames inside of these 3-frame nukes. And if you look, most of them are like this. Just fabulous. They got stores on the top. I've been feeding in the dearth. I haven't been robbing them too much, but this is a great frame to start and support that nuke with. So what I'm doing is I'm reducing the 3-frame nukes so they don't get too strong again, because obviously these are resource hives. And then I'm putting some of that drawn comb that I showed you a little bit earlier that I put in that box. Now I'll put drawn comb back in here. So it's a process of I've got probably gonna have 2 frames of drawn comb and then 3 frames of fully capped brood that I'm gonna pull out of these 3-frame nukes, and then I'm gonna put that swarm in this box right here. That's what I'm doing right now. And I'll show you a little bit more. Okay, the march was effectively over. There's about 50 bees left, but they're just kind of milling around. This is the box they marched into that I showed you. Kind of pop the lid and just kind of show you not much going on. Disoriented. There's a small bunch of bees, but I can kind of show you a little bit what's going on down in here. They're definitely kind of clustering on the bottom. And the reason they're clustering on the bottom is because they're clustering around the queen. So this is probably going to work very well, mostly because we got a queen that's got good pheromones. They're paying a lot of attention to her. That also tells me she's mated. If she was not mated, they would not be paying attention to her like that. Here I've got some resources from these other hives, and I still hadn't found the hive she swarmed from yet, which is unusual, which means it might be one of these hives over here. Either way, I know it's from one of my hives because she was marked. And I'm going to kind of show you how I'm going to put this together. First of all, the queen is protected. And I do want to show you one other thing. These things, the plastic ones, are dangerous. If you push this direction, that queen can get out. I had a queen caged over here from one of my 3-frame nukes, and I set her to the side like I always do. And I went back to put her in, and this entire thing had broken. I don't know how it broke. It may have just been deteriorating, and she was fluttering around on the ground. If your queen ever goes missing from your cage, the first thing you need to do is not move. Look at your feet, crawl around on the ground, find her. She's probably within 3 to 4 feet of where you left her if it's only been a few minutes. Don't trust these things. Treat them like she's gonna get away every single time. So resources. So this is pure drawn comb, just like this other one, but I'm gonna put the actual bee resources I've got in here first. This is a food frame, so I'm gonna go ahead and put it, actually I'm gonna put the food frame in last. Let me show you, I can get my hive tool. All right, so this is brood, mixed of capped and uncapped. So they've got some rearing to do. That's a nice one to go in the center. More uncapped and capped brood with my oxalic acid extended strip release for Varroa mites. They work like a champ. Separate video for that one. If you got Varroa mite problems, just check that video out. It's a recommendation, it works for me. This is food, pollen resources. If this hive is too weak, putting this much food in here, they could get robbed out. It is a little bit of a risk. So I'm actually only gonna put one food frame in there. I'm gonna look at this one. Actually, this is a pretty good one. So I'm gonna put this one in here. I'm gonna put one of these frames of drawn comb in here, so they've got some work to do. This keeps them busy. And then I'm gonna put this other food frame on the outside, actually, so that'll cop it out. So I've got 2 frames of brood, a nice good frame of food and pollen. So this is a nice 5-frame nuke. It's already got some young going in there. With the young brood, they will take to that queen because the brood smell is they're gonna be fine. They're gonna be like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be the easiest swarm ever. We've already got a hive going. So now, to let the lady go is the important part. And there she is. She could probably fly. Remember, she flew in here, so we gotta keep her down in there. I don't want her to get out. So I'm gonna make sure she crawls in there. There she goes. She's down in the frames. I have had swarm queens fly back to the tree in that stage right there. So the way I did that was probably not the best because she could have gotten away and she almost acted like she wanted to. All right, so now this hive is gonna get food. I'm just gonna cover it for the time being to let them get settled, but I will feed them today. Food, and I will come back and check on her later on today and tomorrow to make sure that there isn't any sort of fighting or anything, but there's plenty of open brood in there with that, and they're just gonna go to town in here. And I'm doing a 5-frame because if this doesn't work, I don't wanna waste too many resources as if it was a 10-frame, but if this sucker goes, I'm gonna probably take this to a 10-frame and continue to take resources out of these smaller hives through the dearth so that maybe one of these will build up through the winter. But this was a suicide swarm, meaning a swarm that would have never made it. I'm rescuing it by putting capped brood, both capped and uncapped, and food frames in here in the dearth, and I'm gonna continue to feed. Not a whole lot of work to do because I gave them drawn comb. They just gotta keep making babies. So as long as that queen was healthily mated, and I think she was by the way they were treating her in that cage, this will probably make it through the winter. Hope you enjoyed this content. Let me know in the comments below. I do this for you. I'm here in Jacksonville, Florida, Zone 9A. My name is Chuck Cook. Have a great day.